Hey there, people from other lands. I'm Andrei from PSD Box, and in this video I will show how I made this manipulation. It's not really difficult. As usually, I will give you as much detail as I can. And well, probably this will be the last tutorial in 2013, so let's see how you can do this. I'll show you I'll show you the original image first, which is this one. So let me exit the full screen. So I started with this image and I ended up with this. So we'll see a lot of things about light and making shadows and stuff like that, and add a few details here. So I hope you like this tutorial, and well, let's get started. For this tutorial, I used a few images from the deposited photos. I'll give you a smaller resolution size so you can follow up. But well, I used some others from DeviantArt. The main image, which is this background, I used it from I got it from DeviantArt. So I'll give you the links to all the images that I used. As usually, you'll find them on my website below this video. So if you're watching it from YouTube, you'll find a link to my website, which will take you there, and there you'll find the images. So the first thing that I want to do is open the background image. So you can see these are all the images that I used. This is the stock folder. So let's open that. Remember that as a premium member, you will be able to download this video along with a PSD file if you want to see the PSD file. And well, let's see how I worked with this. The first thing that I want to do is unlock the background, because we don't need this background. So in order to unlock it, you can press and hold the Alt key and double click on the layer. That will unlock it. And I used the quick selection tool. I usually don't use this tool to make selections, but in this case I did, because I have a lot of contrast difference between the sky and this rocks here. So it's really easy to use the quick selection tool. And then I used the refine edge. I'm using Photoshop CS6, but you can follow this tutorial in previous versions of Photoshop. There are a few things that I think are specific to CS6, but it's easy to find alternatives to the techniques that I'm using here, and I will tell you what you can do if you don't have Photoshop CS6. So the first thing I want to do is paint the background that I don't need. Now, this plant here, don't worry about it. We will cover it with another bush. So let's get rid of that. With the Alt key, you can subtract. For example, if right now I painted over this area here, and if you want to exclude something from that selection, for example, if I want to exclude this area from here, I can press the Alt key and you can see the cursor it turns into a minus there. And if you paint, you will start to exclude areas from the selection. Let's leave it like it is. Let's check a bit the edges here. Let's zoom in. Okay, I want to exclude that, so I'm pressing the Alt key and paint over this area. As I said, we will use the refine edge anyway. Okay, that looks nice to me. Let's click the layer mask icon here. And you can see that the mask is inverted, so I can press Ctrl Command I, and that inverts my layer mask. I also have a small area here that I don't need, so I'll get the brush tool and make it bigger. It's too big. Okay, select the layer mask, make sure the foreground color is set to black, and use a normal brush and just paint this out, but I don't want to uncheck the shape dynamics. So just get rid of this area here, like that. Okay, so we removed the old background. Now I'll get my other background, but first I want to, well, first add the second background, then refine the edges, because you'll see it better. So press Ctrl Command O to open the image. This is this photo is from deposited photos, so I cannot give you the full resolution, but I'll give you a smaller resolution so you can work with, or just find another background image. Doesn't really matter. I wanted something of a sunset because I knew the effect that I was looking for. So you can even find the sky and then just something on the background, then combine both images. But I use this image for this, and I wanted to have that part of that tree there because that gives a bit of a something there that looks a bit better. And somewhere there. Okay, and now let's take care of the edges. Okay, let's take a look here and here. I want to get rid of that pixel there, of that fringing, I think it's called. Okay, and here on the bottom, well, it looks pretty nice. Okay, so in order to use the refine edge, what you do is press and hold the control key or command on a Mac and click on the layer mask, and that loads the selection that you just created. And then select any selection tool, like any marquee tool, and click. You can see this button appears here that says refine edge, or even on the mask itself, I think, yeah, if you right click on it, you can choose the refine edge. And what I wanted to do here is just shift the edge a bit on the left, so I put negative values here. Increase the feather just a couple of pixels, not too much, and then increase the contrast. If you increase the contrast a lot, the edges get sharper, and if you increase the feather, you can see what happens. But I don't want to make it too extreme because I want to keep the roughness of those rocks there. So I will leave the shift edge to about -15 and reduce the contrast. I don't want to have too sharp, the edges to be too sharp, because that's not realistic either. So something like that will be okay. We will change the output to layer mask. If you have a previous version of Photoshop, maybe this will be a bit different, but the settings, I think, they should be the same. So let's click OK. And now the refine edge updated our layer mask to exclude those areas, to shift it a bit. We still have a bit of color there from the camera, the fringing area there, but there's no problem with that. We'll cover it with the light effect later on. Okay, so this is our basic background here. The next thing that I did is I used another bush to cover that plant there because I didn't like that part there. So you'll find this image on DeviantArt. You can see the address here, the link to the image, and you can see the rules. Okay, and I will use the polygonal marquee tool to select this bush here. Double click to close the selection, Control X to cut it, and Control W to close this, and I will not save it. Okay, now I'll paste this here. You can see it's quite big, so let's name this bush. And press Control Command T to load the free transform. And now I can press Shift and Alt, or Shift or Option, to make it smaller towards the center here. And I want to put it here, but of course I want to make it smaller. Something like that. Just a bit bigger, like so. You can see you don't even have to mask it, it really fits quite nicely there. We will have to add a shadow, but well, let's add it now, because create a layer under the bush layer and name it Bush Shadow. And get the brush tool with the B key. Use a soft brush and about, well, so let's see the size, about that big. Use the black color and set the opacity and the flow to about, let's say, 40% maybe. You can also use the drop shadow and use this in the direction setting there, but I like to control it with the manually. Okay, so that's why I use the brush, and I think it's more realistic. 40% is a bit too hard, and if you're not used to making shadows, it's a bit can be a bit difficult. So use a really low opacity, like 20%, and just paint some soft shadows there on the wall. And see how that looks. It makes it look a bit more realistic. We will still need to change a bit the light, because on this bush, because the light will be here. Actually, if you take a look at those these houses here, actually the light is coming from somewhere there. That's the sunset there, and well, we need to create a few shadows here anyways, because it's close to the wall, so the wall also casts some shadow on this bush. But you can do that with the layer styles. If you double click on the bush layer, it opens this window, and you can use Well, you have several options here. You can use inner shadow and uncheck, use global light and use about a 20%, a 20 degrees angle, increase the distance and the size a bit. But I think I used the gradient overlay and I set the style to radial and I set this to reverse because I want the black part to be here, and I increased the size and set it somewhere like something like that, and then change the blend mode to multiply, and that way the white part goes away and you'll have this part here, and then decrease the opacity a bit and you can see the effect that you get. And if you want, you can also open the gradient and drag this to the left, and that way what happens, I'll set this back to normal so you can see it, and reduce the scale. If you change this, if you drag this to the left, the gradient, it was too soft, okay, so I made it a bit harder by dragging this. Okay, let's set this back to multiply and play with our gradient here. Okay, for some reason I cannot move it once I open it, so I have to close it and open it again, and now I can move it around again. I don't know why that happens, but anyways. And I'll decrease the opacity a bit to about 60% or something like that, and now it looks a bit more realistic having that effect there because it was too bright. Okay, maybe I would even decrease it just a lot more about. Let's start adding the first light effects on this rocks here. So what you do is select the layer, which I will name ruins, just like in the original. I'll double click on it, and you can use other methods if you want to, but I like to use layer styles because that way I can save a few layers on the layers palette. And I use the gradient overlay just like I did with the bush there, and I set this to radial, but I used another color. I used I used black. Well, let's use a really dark brown like that, and then an orange like so, maybe something like that, and let's hit reverse and increase the scale. Okay, now this will be the part that will be that will have that light there, and in order for you to see it better, I'll change the blend mode to soft light, and you can see what happens. This part now becomes a lot darker. I'll have to use a darker tone and a bit more unsaturated, and maybe desaturate this orange a bit more. Okay, so let's see how that looks. Okay, and as I said, you can move it, but I don't know why. Once you move it, you have to close it and open it again. You can with this you can move it around. You can see it's like a torch or something. You can really light up areas. So we'll leave it here in the middle, and again you can change the softness of that transition between the dark and the white area. So I'll leave it there. We'll see. Maybe I'll have to reduce a bit the opacity, but for now we'll leave it to about 90%. The next thing that I want to do is start adding some details here on the top. You can see these branches and this stuff here, and I used stock images for that. So let's open this one. This is one of the stock images that I used with the polygonal lasso tool. Again, you can see the link to the author that made this stock images. Let's grab this part, Control C, and let's paste them right here. And I want to flip this vertically like that and put it here, and then grab the other part, which is this one, and go here and paste it here with Control V, shift it a bit and place it around somewhere here. This is just to have sort of a structure because we will add some ivy and some other leaves and stuff, and I want to delete this part because I don't need it. Okay, now we have the base here. Let's name this branch 1 and this one branch 2. And in fact, what I will do is select both of them and press Ctrl Command G to create a group, and I'll name this top plants. And I do this because I want to add, I want to be able to affect everything that's inside this group with the layer style, and then I'll create a clipping mask for this. If you have a previous version of Photoshop, I think you will not be able to do this, and you'll have to do it manually for each layer. I'll show you that once it's done, but let's keep adding stuff here. So I'll close this image first, don't save. Press Ctrl Command O to open, and let's open this other plant stock. This is a really good stock image. I'll give you the link to it. And if it's no longer available, just search for something else. You'll find tons of stock images on DeviantArt for free. You don't have to use these ones that I'm using, so you can use other ones if you want to. Now press Ctrl Command G to duplicate it and shift it horizontally, and then I'll shift it vertically as well, because I just want to have some variation. I'll make it a bit smaller and put it here, and then duplicate it again and move it here, for example. Maybe duplicate it again. Maybe now shift it horizontally. Just make sure you have no obvious patterns, okay, because that is not going to look nice. Okay, so these are the top plants that I have here. But before we add any light effects to this, we need to keep adding some light effects here on the background. So I'll create a new layer below this top plants layer group, sorry. Create a new layer, and I'll name this darkness. Well, actually it should be a solid color layer, and I'll choose color like this, and I'll change the blend mode to hard light, okay. And I will change maybe this color here, but the first thing I want to do is select the layer mask, get the lasso tool, and well, actually I'll decrease the opacity because I want to see it, and I'll select the edge like that. Okay, just do it by hand. I don't need precision here, and fill that selection with black. Make sure you have the foreground color set to black, and press Alt or Option backspace to fill that with black. And now we have this area not affected by this color. This is where things get different if you have a previous version of Photoshop. If you have CS6, you can increase the feather, and you can see you can soften that layer mask. Okay, but what I will do is make the lasso tool thing again. Just make sure you select a bigger area like that, because when you use the feather, some of that softness will go over the background there, and we don't want that. So make sure you leave more rocks outside the selection, okay? So I'll do that again. I'll double click on the layer mask and increase the feather. Okay, if you don't have Photoshop CS6, what you can do is with this layer mask created, go to filter, choose blur, and then Gaussian blur, and choose an amount of blur that you want. But since I have Photoshop CS6, I want to work non-destructively, so I can use this feather option because it's a lot quicker and it's a lot easier for me to use it. And you can see now you have a totally different kind of lighting here. We have this part in shadow, and we have the light here. This is sort of like a cave or something like that. And let's see if we can choose another color. The reason why I chose an orange tone is because it's the kind of effect that I want to give. I want to create a sort of a sunset effect, so I want to go towards that light, ambient light, okay? So from here you can choose the tone that you want. I'm looking especially on highlights and this part of the rocks here. So what I will do is go to the original, copy the exact value just to make sure I'm using the same one. Okay. Come back here and put the code here. It's 2D2820. That's the code. And the opacity, let's leave it at about 80%. Well, let's leave it at 70. I don't want to have too much darkness here. Or maybe decrease the opacity of the gradient overlay here on the soft light mode. Okay, something like that. Now that we have this part here in darkness, these plants here don't really fit the lighting, so we have to deal with that. Now I have this group here, and in Photoshop CS6, if you create a new layer, you can clip it to a group, and I think in previous versions of Photoshop you cannot do that. So if I right click here, I can choose create clipping mask and clip this mask to the this layer, sorry, to the whole group. If you cannot do that, you'll have to do what I will do now to each layer separately, so you have a bit more of work. And what I will do is get the gradient tool, make sure I have black to transparent, and now I'll click here, press and hold the shift key to create a straight gradient and paint like that, but I want to make it a bit bigger, so I'll start from here, from outside the canvas, and drag to about there, and you can see those parts get darker. And I'll do the same here. Okay, and you can do the same for the top part, like that, from higher up. On the other one I did it a bit differently, because I entered here inside the group and I chose, actually for the branch 1 and branch 2 I used the color overlays, and color overlay, not gradients, and chose a brown color like that, and I used some blend mode, which I don't remember, maybe multiply or color burn or something like that, just to make those branches a bit darker. Let's leave it on multiply, or maybe let's try other blend modes like hard light. Not working. I like color burn, but it's too strong. Darker color is not working. Linear burn is too strong. Yeah, let's leave it on linear burn and reduce the opacity. And I'll copy this same effect to the branch 1 layer. You can press and hold the Alt key and click on this FX icon and drag it to the other layer and let go. And you can see the kind of effect that you get. And the next thing that I wanted to do here is add some sort of rim lights here on these edges of this, let's call it a cave. I don't know what exactly this is, but I like how it looks. So what I will do is close this group. What I will do is create a new layer above the darkness layer. Let's name this cave light, cave edge light. And what I will do is use this layer mask of the ruins. Okay, I want to use this on that layer that I created. So I'll select it, press and hold the Alt key, click on it and drag it up and drop it on top of the cave edges light, sorry. And you can see now it duplicated that layer mask for this layer. And the reason why I want to have this is because I want to paint the light only on the edges. And what I will do is change the blend mode to, maybe we can use vivid light, we'll see. And let's see what color we need to use for that. Make sure you select the brush tool first, and I'll leave the opacity and the flow to about 70 maybe. Let's see how that works. Use a fairly big brush and hardness set to 0. And now select the layer itself, and let's make a test here. See how that looks. Well, it looks good, but I need maybe another blend mode. Linear lights, but maybe with a brighter tone. I don't really like how that looks. I don't like this color. I'll use the vivid light, but I want another tone, so I'll select everything and delete. And use a brighter tone, something like that. And let's see how that works. I'll increase the opacity and the flow to 100% because I think it will work better. Yeah, that looks nice, but it's too strong now. So you need to get the right color. Otherwise it will not look too nice. Well, anyways, I'll create this raw rough painting here, this rough light, and then I'll edit it. I'll show you how. Okay, just make something like that, and now create a hue saturation adjustment, because it's a lot easier to edit it once you have it painted, because it's difficult to choose the right one from the color picker. So once you have that, create a hue saturation adjustment like I did here, and right click on it and choose create clipping mask, or press the Alt key and click between the two layers, because we only want this adjustment to affect this layer. So what I will do now is maybe change a bit the color, desaturate it, and maybe with the lightness what you do is decrease the effect because it's too strong right now, and maybe go a bit towards the yellow color, the yellow tone, something like that. And what I will do now is I'll get the eraser, because I don't want to mess with this layer mask. I'll select the cave edge light and select the eraser, a really soft eraser, and the opacity of about, let's see, 50%, and hardness 0 on the brush, and because I want to get rid of some of the effect gradually using this low opacity eraser. Okay. And it's too red. And that's better, and decrease the opacity, the saturation, sorry. We just want a touch of light there, and maybe the lightness a bit as well. Okay, see that? So this is what we created, just a touch of light there. Even so, it's too saturated, so really unsaturated like that. And have a really soft light. You don't want hard edges. Okay, so now we have that edge, that light there on the edge. And let's add our models here, our couple. This is the stock image that I used. What I will do is get the already cut image from the other artwork, because I'll not spend time doing it. You can use the pen tool to do it, which is what I did. So select the pen tool, set this to path, set this option here on the top, set to path, and just start drawing a path around their bodies like that. It takes a bit of time, that's why I will not do it, because that's really basic and I have tutorials about that. So just create a path like that. When you get around the hair, leave a space like that, you'll see the image that I have. And when you get here, do something like this, and don't worry about these hairs. They're not really important for this image. Just cut it on the edge like that, go with the path around. I'm doing it really quickly, so you have to take your time and do it properly. When you get here, make sure you grab part of this cloth here, or whatever that thing is, go around, and then close the selection. And once you have the path created, right click and choose make selection, click OK, leave everything to default, and you turn that path into a selection and click the layer mask icon, and the background is gone. So that's how I created, that's how I selected, that's how I cropped the couple from the background. I will not save that. I'll go back to my original layer here and select, I'll get this layer here. So this is what I got. I'll delete everything. I'll delete the layer mask and delete the effect as well. Okay, so this is the raw image. Okay, see how I left a bit of space around the hair, and I'll show you how to mask that, and also a bit of that part there. Let's see where to put them. If you put them too low, they look really small, and if you put them really high, too close to the edge, they look too big. So I'll place them somewhere there, maybe a bit more towards the left. Okay, so once you have them on your canvas, what you do is make sure you place them above all the lighting and everything except the plants here. I placed them, well, you can place them on top of them if you want as well. Create a layer mask for that. Get the brush tool zoom in so you can see it better. And I used the brush, I think I used this one, yeah, the 24 pixels brush. You'll have this on all Photoshop versions. These are special brushes, but I used the normal brush. I just want to make sure I don't have the pen pressure on. And I decreased the opacity and the flow to about 50%. And reduced a bit the brush size on some places and just start painting like that. I decreased the flow too much. And the reason why I use this brush is because it's not soft. It doesn't have that round soft edge. It's a bit rough on the edges, see that? And that helps here with the hair. And just make a few passes. If you want less passes, if you want to take more background with each stroke, just increase a bit the opacity and the flow. The reason why I don't leave it at 100% is because I control the effect a bit better. And you can see that with the new background already in, you can see it a lot better, and some areas almost don't even need masking. You can see the original background is green, and if your new background is green as well, the masking is a lot easier because you don't need to pay as much attention. I don't really care too much about these individual hairs, so I will mask them. See that? A few passes and you can mask it really easily. I don't know what I did. I decreased opacity because I pressed the 1 key. If you have the brush selected like that, if you type, for example, 50, you can see how the opacity goes to 50. And so you don't have to do it manually. You just type 50 on the keyboard and it will change the opacity of the brush. And I think if you press shift, and 50 or 90, it will change the flow. So if you just type the number, it will change the opacity of the brush, and if you press shift and type the number, it will change the flow of the brush. That's really a cool tip if you want to save some time. If you like working with keyboard shortcuts, which I recommend because it's a lot easier. Okay, so that's how I masked the hair of the boy. And here on the girl's hair, I did the same. You could do a bit of a better job here if you really picky about this. You can create a custom brush and create some fake hair. It's really easy to do, and it looks quite nice actually. For this one, I didn't think it was necessary. I just wanted to get rid of that hard edge by making a few strokes with this brush here and here as well. Okay, so that's really not that difficult, and you can see it's a pretty nice result from this to this. Okay, it looks quite realistic, I think. Now let's fix the bottom part here. I was thinking about maybe adding an object here or something, but in the end I abandoned that idea and I used the clone stamp tool. So I created a new layer and I think I named it Pans Fix or something like that. And I clipped it to the couple layer. And then I selected the clone stamp tool. And let's zoom in a bit more. And decrease the size a bit. Sample with the Alt key from an area like that, and then go down, paint over it like so. And don't worry about those edges, we will fix them. I'll show you how. Just make sure you make a decent job here, so you match as much as possible the tone, like so. And that's it. And you can see, if you zoom out, you can see the difference, the difference between the area that I cloned. So what I did to fix that, I decreased the opacity and the flow a bit, and that way I will sample again and paint like that over it, and that way I can blend the tones a bit, make a softer transition. See that? That looks a lot better. Now you can even tell there was something there, okay? Before and after. The problem that we have here is that the shape it's a bit it's not really realistic, and it's too hard, the edge. You can fix that if you want to. I left it how it was, and the only thing that I did is I started to create shadows for that. So I created a new layer below the couple layer, and let's name it shadow 1 because we will create 2 shadows. Get the brush tool and use a normal brush, a round brush, but set the hardness to about 20% or to 30, and make sure the foreground color is set to black, and the opacity and flow to about 50 or 40%. And this is where it comes to making the shadows. What I do, if you look at my brush here, is have most of the brush on the inside of the body or under it if you want to, and just the part of it is sticking out, and that way I create a sort of this is what I call a contact shadow. I think I have tutorials about how to make shadows like this. So I'm just painting with the tip of the brush with just part of it. This opacity and flow is a bit too strong, so if you don't have experience making shadows, you should maybe drop it a bit to about, let's say, 30 or something like that, and then just make some soft shadows there. And this is how I created these shadows here. I create 2 types of shadows. These are the contact shadows, and then we'll create some softer shadows, and then we will duplicate this layer and create a 3rd shadow, and even a 4th one, you'll see. So let's create this contact shadow here. That's too much. Let's undo. Okay, like so. In between here, just make a couple of passes, but with a really low opacity, like that. And now with the same opacity, about 20%, just paint a few times with a bigger and softer brush around their bodies, like that. Okay, and you'll start to see that now their bodies are too bright compared to the bottom side, which is where we have the shadow, and this is how it looks without the shadow and with the shadow. Let's create a 2nd shadow, and this time what I will do is duplicate this couple layers. I'll press and hold the Alt key and click on the layer on an empty space and drag down, and that creates a copy of it. I'll delete the layer mask because I don't need it. Well, let's apply it actually, and I'll press Ctrl Command U to load the hue saturation, and I'll decrease the lightness to 0. Now you cannot see what happened because this layer is below, but if I move it a bit, what you can see is I got this layer and I created a silhouette of it. Okay, so what I will do now with that layer created, I'll press Ctrl Command T to load the free transform, and I'll right click and create and choose flip vertical and drag it right there. And now I want to move this around and I cannot do it. Let's press the F key. Well, I cannot do it. Anyways, I want to right click on it and choose distort, and now I can distort this a bit. I want to change a bit the direction of this shadow. I want it slightly to the left, like that. That looks nice to me. And now I will go to filter, blur, and choose Gaussian blur. And let's see how much blur we can apply to this. The amount of blur that you apply depends on the canvas size, because I'm using a high resolution size, and about 76 pixels. I think it's okay for now. And I'll decrease the opacity, let's see, to about 70%, or even more, to about 80 or something like that, and change the blend mode. You can use multiply, but I like to use soft light because that way some highlights there, the highlights look a bit more realistic. And leave the opacity to about 70% or something like that. I think I blurred it too much, so what I will do is undo it. If you want to avoid this, you can turn this into smart object, and that way when you apply the filter, that filter becomes a smart filter, and you don't have to undo your job. You can just double click on the smart filter and edit it. Let's see how that looks. Now it looks a bit better. Okay, see that smart filter there? If I want to change the amount of blur, I can expand that and double click on the Gaussian blur and change the blur, the amount of blur. Okay, let's leave it how it is. Maybe decrease the opacity a bit more, like that. And now we have to create yet another shadow on their bodies, on the bodies themselves. What I will do is create a new layer on top of the pants fixed layer and also clip it to the couple layer, and let's name this body shadows. I'll get the brush tool again. So as you can see, the things that need most attention is the shadows here on the whole scene. So now decrease the opacity to about 20 and the flow as well. We have it there, and now do the opposite that we did here with the paint with the soft part with the edge of the brush like that over their bodies, like so, with a big soft brush, because we need to darken this part. Okay, and now I'll decrease the opacity even more to about 10 or 15 and paint over their bodies. Now the light comes from this part, so this part of the edge, is here, will be illuminated, and we have to make their backs a bit darker. And you can help yourself using layer styles again. If you double click on the layer, on the couple layer, you can use the gradient overlay for that to make the bottom part a bit darker. And I think I chose the multiply blend mode, and of course you need to decrease the opacity quite a lot to about 27. I don't really like this blend mode. Let's try the soft light, see how that looks. Yeah, I think it looks a bit better. Well, it depends on what you like. If you like the multiply, use the multiply. And then continue. Well, the problem that you have with the soft light right now, I just saw it, is that the white part of the gradient, this one, makes the hair too bright. So if you want to use a soft light, make sure you use the black to transparent instead, because I don't want the white part of the gradient to affect that. Okay, so let's continue on the body shadow layer with the brush and with the low opacity to about 10. And just make sure that we don't have the pen pressure on. And use a big soft brush to just darken this part of their bodies. The hair, the boy's arm here. I like to work with low opacity brushes because that way I can control the effect a lot better, and I repeated that over and over again in all my tutorials. We don't need to make this too dark, but we definitely want to make it a bit darker. Oops. Don't paint too much on the woman's arm there, on the top part, because it will not look too nice. You can also try here. I have this layer set to normal, but you can try soft light. But that way you will need to use a higher opacity and flow. I'll leave it to normal because I like it better. So just a matter of painting with this low opacity brush until you get a result that you like. Okay, let's see the before and after. You can see that now they are a bit darker, which is what we want. We don't want this black spot over her back. Okay, and since we have this clipped, even if we paint here on the background, nothing happens because the layer is clipped, and it's what you paint is only visible over their bodies. Now this looks a bit better now, but we need to add some light effects. And again, I'll go to the layer styles, and I want to create the same kind of light that I created here for these rocks. And in this time, I'll use the inner shadow. And you can use global light, but I like to uncheck it and have each light on each object have it individual. Because if you choose global light, All the other layers that have the global light on, if you change something here, the light will change on the other objects as well, and I don't want that. I'll leave the angle to about 37 degrees because I want the light to come from there. And I'll change the blend mode to color dodge. Maybe I'll change it, we'll see. And I'll use a color like this, an orange tone like that. And let me zoom in a bit so you can see it better. What I don't want to have that light on the bottom part of there. See that? I don't want that. I want to have the angle like so. And the distance is too much. And I want to soften that with the size. Okay, I don't want to make it too soft, and I don't want to increase the distance too much. Something like that, maybe a bit more saturated and a bit darker. The darker the tone, the effect is a lot less visible. Okay, so we want something like that. So you can see the values that I have here. Maybe they will not work for your image, but try something similar. Just take a look at your image and judge for yourself. Let me show you the before and after. See that? We added a bit more light on the top and on this part, which is what we wanted. The next thing that I added is a few more vegetation here. I added a palm tree here and some leaves here and some grass there. I don't have the grass on this. I have it on my hard drive, but it turned off. So what I will do is just add this, and I'll give you the links to the grass that I added. Yeah, you can see this grass there. Let me show you that. Well, actually, I'll get the whole group and move it here. Okay, this is the 3D renders. I'll give you the links to those. Just place them below your ruins layer, like there. Right there. Okay, let's open that palm tree. I got this from Deposit Photos, and you can see it already has the path because this is a 3D render as well. So I click Control and I press Control and click on this path and create a layer mask for it. Apply it, and with the Move tool, click on it and drag it to my other canvas here. So I'll place it there like that, just to have a bit something else there because it was too empty. And if you zoom in at 100%, you can see it has these lines here, and you can use the refine edge, or you can use the inner shadow and set the distance to 0, and you can see they're pretty much done. They're pretty much gone. Let's increase maybe, well, no, let's not increase the choke. Let's increase the size a bit to about 10, I would say. Yeah, so it makes the whole thing a bit darker, but those lines are gone. So that's the palm tree, and I'll duplicate it and move it to the other side and just leave some of the leaves visible there, like so. You can see it makes the whole thing look a bit better. Just populated the scene with some vegetation there. Okay, the next thing that we can do is I added a few birds there flying, and I used my brush. I created a brush set of flying birds, and I think I used this one. Yep. I'll create a new layer on top of everything. I'll make it smaller and just click once with the brush tool, painting with black, but I need to make sure that I have the flow and the opacity to 100%, and just paint some birds flying there. Okay, you can also paint them below the top plants group, and that way you can move them around and they look like they're actually behind those, really on the background there. And the next thing that I did is to add the final light effect, and then we will go with the final adjustments. I created a new layer. I used this technique on the fairy tale effect that I created just a few days ago. On that tutorial, I used that technique for the first time. But before I do that, I want to get rid of this rock here. I don't like it. It's distracting. So what I will do is press and hold the Alt key and click on the eye icon on this layer, which I'll name background, BG. And I'll use the clone stamp and just clone this on top. You could make this non-destructively. Let's first increase the flow and opacity of the clone stamp to 100%. You can do it non-destructively if you create a new layer and make sure you have the sample all layers, and that way you can sample from this and paint over it. And I'm using a new layer which is on top of the background layer. Okay, and I'll sample from the horizon there. I will align it and paint like that, and it's gone. It was a bit distracting, so that's why I wanted to have it out of there. Okay, now it looks better. Let's continue with that glow of light that I was talking about. Let's name this glow and set the blend mode of the layer to screen. Okay, and get the brush tool. Maybe we'll have to move it below the top plan, so we'll see if that looks realistic or not. Select a soft brush, and we'll have to see how big it is, how big we want it to be. I don't want to create the sunlight, okay? I don't want to create the sun there, just a bit of a glow. So I have the screen blend mode on that layer, so I can use a darker tone for less effect. If you want more effect, use a brighter tone. And I'll use a dark orange tone like so. Let's see if this one works. But I have to disable the pen pressure on the shape dynamics. Yeah, that looks good, but I need something a bit more saturated and a bit more visible. And a bigger brush. And that looks a bit better, but I still want more effect. Yeah, something like that. Now I'll use a smaller brush and something just a bit brighter, and a brush that's a bit smaller, a few clicks, something like that. And in order to make this a bit more realistic, let me do it again. I'll make it a bit bigger because I'll show you why. I'll use a bigger brush like so. Yeah, that looks better. And now I'll use a smaller brush and with a brighter color. Right there on the middle. And what I will do now is I want to create a, I don't know, let's call it a dynamic brush or layer mask, sorry. I want parts of this image to act as a mask for this glow. And for that I will use the apply image. This shadow, by the way, is too strong. We'll have to take care of that. So I'll select the layer mask for the glow layer, and I'll go to image and choose apply image. And what this menu does is it takes the whole image, because I have this set on merged, and it creates a black and white version of it, and it applies it, in this case, to my layer mask, and it uses a blend mode that you choose, in this case multiply. So if you don't have the layer mask, it will apply it to the layer itself. But I want to activate the mask option as well. And you can see that now something starts to show up there on the layer mask. And for this image, I'll also choose merged. And I want to set everything as it is. The only thing that I want to change here is the channel. So you can choose the channels here that you want. And in this case, I think I will choose blue because it usually works the best. And then I choose invert because the layer mask, I don't know if you can see it on the video, it's inverted. So I'll choose invert. And I don't know if you see what happens. See that? It somehow diminishes the effect. It reduces the effect because now the darker parts of the image, like for example, this shadow and this part of the branch and part of the here on the back, they act as a mask, okay, for that glow. And now this glow only affects brighter parts of the image, but not the parts that are darker. And I clicked OK. And if I activate this on the whole screen, oops, I moved it. Apply image. Well, actually, I think it comes out like that. I don't know if it's something wrong with it or not. But well, that's what happened. It applies the image on the layer mask, and now this effect. I think it's a bit more realistic. But if you cannot do this, just leave it as it is, and that's it. I want to reduce a bit the shadow. I think the shadow one is a problem here. Something there that I don't like. Yeah, the body shadow. I unclipped the whole thing here. That's why it was looking weird. I'll do the apply image again because something happened there. I think I moved it. Let's delete that. Click create a layer mask, select it, go to image, apply image, leave everything as it is, activate the mask and choose the blue and invert and click OK. Yeah, it looks like it shifts. I don't know why, but anyways. And if you want to change the tone of this glow, you can press Ctrl Command U and you can increase the saturation of it, or you can choose use the hue slider to adjust the tone, or if you want to make it brighter, you can make it brighter as well. Let's leave it how it was and about there. Okay, I made it a bit more intense. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Let's make the final adjustments. So the first adjustment that I added here is the curves adjustment, and I entered on each channel separately because I want to control the tone also. The values that I have, well, I don't have the exact values, but what I did is I added a bit more blue on the shadows and a bit more yellow on the highlights, and see how that changes. It makes it look a bit more warm on the highlights part. Okay, see that? And then on the greens, I added a bit more green on the blues and a bit more magenta on the midtones. Okay, not too much, just a touch there, like so. And then on the reds, I shifted this a bit to the left to add a bit more red on the highlights, and left this there on the line where it was, and just move this top one, the highlights, a bit towards the left, and you can see the effect that we create with this. Okay, maybe a bit more blue on the shadows, like that. The next adjustment that I created was a gradient map, and the colors that I have for this are on the shadows more blue, something like this, something a bit unsaturated, a bit more towards the cyan, and quite dark. And for the highlights, I already have a tutorial explaining how the gradient map works. What it does is just replaces the color on the image. And on the highlights I have a yellow tone, like this, an unsaturated yellow or orange, like so. Okay, and you can see the effect that we get. And then I changed the blend mode of this to soft light, and I set the opacity to 30%. And well, it looks nice, but I want to add another gradient map between these two ones. Gradient map, and I want to have it at black and white because I want to try something, and set the blend mode of this to multiply. Yeah, that makes the whole image a bit darker, and it decreases the opacity back to about 30% as well. Let's leave it on 30. See how that looks. Yeah, it makes it a whole lot better in my opinion. Okay, and well, that's it. You can sharpen it if you want. You can create more sharpness, and if you don't like this light here, if you think it's not looking nice, just scroll down and locate this cave edge, and you remember we created a hue saturation for it. You can increase the saturation if you want to make it more saturated, but don't make it too colorful because it's not looking nice, not going to look too nice. Okay, so try to match the light there, the ambient light. And well, that's it. You can use the lighting effects filter. In this case I didn't use it, but well, or if you want to control the overall color here, you can use the selective color. Let's try selective color. You can use the color balance, but anyways, I think it looks nice as it is. I want more magenta on the reds. Yeah, some more yellow there. And on the yellows, we can try adding more cyan and a bit more of magenta. And you can also make them brighter or darker using the black slider. Yeah, you can see the change there. So well, that's it. That's how I created this. So this is the original result, and this is what I created on the tutorial. So it's pretty much the same. I have a bit more magenta here than, and this one is a bit more towards the yellow. And I have another bird here and some other details, but you can add them, and some ivy that I added here, you can see there on the wall. I'll give you the links to all of those images, and you can add them if you want to. So I hope you liked this tutorial. And well, as I said, this was the last tutorial of 2013. And we'll see you next year. Thanks for following me, and see you next time.